Thank you very much. I feel like that clap was just for the fact that we made the mad dash over from general session to here. Well done, everybody. Congratulations, you all made it to the best session after general session. I don't know, I've just made that up. So you're going to join us for a really nice, easygoing conversation about AI. My name's Felicia Asadi. If you just saw me, I was on the stage downstairs. John?
Hi, I'm John Montague. I'm a production director working across various different areas of doing live, rock and roll, to corporate, to theatre.
Awesome. McNeil?
Wow, that sounds a lot more exciting than 17 years in product management at Cvent, but that's what I've been doing. So McNeil Keenan, Vice President of Product Management. Been at Cvent for quite a while now.
Awesome. And if you were just downstairs or maybe just here in your HC session, you would have heard we're doing a lot with AI at the moment, and McNeil is right at the forefront of that product development. So I thought it would be good for you to join us on stage. So thank you very much for having us. So first of all, let's just talk about understanding AI and event planning. Okay, hold on. Before we do this, let's level set. Right, we're all ChatGPT users, right? Yes. We know what AI is. No need for that basic explanation. We're now like, what's the next step? What's the next stage? Is that what you're here for? Yes. Good. Fantastic. Level set. So let's start to talk about the importance of understanding AI's strengths and weaknesses in event planning. Do you think you can give us this kind of like, if you're thinking about using AI, where do we begin with this?
Well, for me, AI is still currently a tool. It's a marvelous thing. It can speed up creativity. It can provide lots of insight. But you still have to have a basic brief to start with. You have to understand what you want to achieve. You have to understand where your program wants to get to. You have to understand what the creative gets to. And that has to be mapped out in the same way as 15 years ago, you would map out a content workflow for a large immersive experience. You have to map out what you want the AI to do. Then you have to find the right tool to deliver that objective. And then you have to work through the steps in order to get there, whether it's R&Ding something new or whether it's using something that's off the shelf and trying to push that into what your delivery is. There's quite a lot of expectation, I find, when I get briefed by agencies of going, we're going to have some AI in this, and the AI will just appear in a brief somewhere, whether it's from an end client or whether it's from an agency. And there isn't really a thought pushed through of what it is you want it to do, how you want it to achieve it, and what is the end goal, what is the takeaway. There has to be, those three steps have to be worked through just in the same way as if you're talking about, in a prosaic logistics operations based, what is the gift that you're going to give the client that they're going to find in their room? How are you going to get there? How is it going to get to the room? What is the purpose of the gift? Those three steps are the same, whether you're talking about something as AI-based, as content-based, or whether it's something far more prosaic, and those things have to be gone through before you get to the point of putting in new technology, because like any new technology, it's got its pros and cons, what it can do, what it can't do, and normally what it can't do is deliver what people want without a really big dollar sign behind it. And that's where a lot of those things fall. Specifically on the creative, on the production delivery. On the large-scale event data gathering, you have to plot how you're going to get those data points into your AI, into your app, and then you have to take into consideration humanity and the fact they're probably not going to do what you want them to do.
That's kind of what I said on the stage this morning. It's like, you want them to do what you want them to do, but I think AI is really helping us to investigate that and interrogate that, which is helpful. But McNeil, within that, product development side of things, when we're thinking about, understanding the strengths and weaknesses, how do you make those decisions of, okay, we'll make this because this seems to be the right thing that people need in order to plan their events?
Yeah. The risk of any kind of shiny new technology is you end up with solutions looking for problems, and that will always remain a backwards way to do things. I think that's exactly what John was kind of talking about there. And so, the job of product management, so much that's the core of our job. So many people like to communicate in terms of solutions. I'm a customer, I'm a prospect, I'm a stakeholder. This is what I want. It's like, well, wait a second. What problem are you actually trying to solve? And let's kind of 5 whys. Well, why is that important? Why is that important? Why is that important? And ultimately, a well-defined problem statement is the only way you're going to ever have success with AI. And ultimately, in the world of events, it's not just to use technology for the sake of technology's sake. One of the best things about being in in-person events is it really manifests itself in getting people together face to face. The technology is just supposed to expedite that, make it more impactful. and then get out of the way. Because the whole point was to get people meeting off of digital screens and talking to each other, right? And so I think that's where you got to start and really deciding, hey, what are the problems that we need to solve to create more impactful event experiences? Break those down, and then you can decide, hey, is AI just another enabling technology that's now in my tool belt to solve this problem?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that Dragon's Den thing, isn't it? You come up with this wonderful thing, you go to the den, you ask them for £100,000 for 10%, and they go, you've solved a problem that didn't exist. You know, and it's that thing. You've got to come up with what is this, why does it need a solution before you come up with what the solution actually is.
Right.
Yeah, completely agree. And that's what we've kind of been talking about. It's like applying at each stage of the process of your event planning. You already have a good process for event planning, I'm quite sure, where you start looking at, okay, we're in planning phase, and then promotion, and then day of and post-event execution. And I think what you're talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, is at each stage of this, we spoke a bit about the planning, but you have to think about, okay, well, what is the challenge in promotion? What is the challenge within the planning? And then what is the challenge for my day of event? What is the challenge for post-event feedback? So I've put here some things that AI could be doing. Where, if I was to start with you, McNeil, where do you think right now, looking at, you know, these parts of the planning process, AI can have like the biggest impact?
Yeah, I mean, let's just talk about some of the basics. You know, we talk about ChatGPT, but there's some ways we've seen this really being this great extra tool for event organizers to be more efficient in their job. There's so many hidden jobs to be done in this industry. So much hidden work. I mean, just take like writing content. You start to unpack how much content event organizers are directly responsible for. There's FAQs, there's website content, there's email content, there's push notifications. It's kind of this hidden task that actually consumes hours and hours and hours of time. Not only talking about initially crafting first drafts, getting reviews, getting it back, and ensuring that it's going to represent your brand and your event's goals effectively. So that's an example of where AI has come in. We actually built a writing assistant. In the first version, we didn't really, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, about a year ago, we didn't really do anything different than what you can get off the shelf with ChatGPT. And so the problem with that was you're having to kind of give it all the context so that you can get a successful result. So we just released kind of a V2 of that writing assistant where we inject all the context of your event. It understands the job to be done, so it knows you're writing a know before you go email, or it knows you're writing a session description. It understands what this event's about, so you're starting from 3 steps in, and it's totally integrated into your experiences. So I think just where are all those kind of hidden jobs that content especially well suited, where as long as you can build the context. So we built some context as an example in our product, but think about all the context you have. You know all the information there is to know about your event. You know shuttle schedules, you know the food and beverage and the catering menus, and you know the service schedules and the room layouts. Where do you document that? Is it in a central knowledge base? How do you communicate that to your stakeholders? How do you communicate that to your audience? Is it a bunch of one-off emails, Slack messages, internal messaging? Or have you put that knowledge into a centralized place so that hopefully not just you, but AI assistants can start to help answer questions from that knowledge?
Yeah, I kind of think what's missing from here, as you were talking, I was thinking, this is event planning at its best. You know, you're thinking about the process, but actually what you're talking about is your processes inside your organization. Like, what is your center of excellence, as we like to call it, that you're building up within your organization so that they have the knowledge to know, if I want to find something, this is how I go. Like, we use Seismic, for example, to store a lot of our documents, and that auto sort of finds things. It's got a really good search bar at the top, and it should be surfacing more of the stuff that my team needs so that when we get to this point of event planning, actually we're coming at it on the front foot and not the back foot. Because our process and our teams are structured in the right way. So, John, I'm going to ask you, I know like McNeil comes from more of a development side of things, and he's thinking about, the products and tools you can use. You, I think, might come from a more creative side of things. How do you think that AI is assisting creativity within the planning process?
Well, I think in its current iteration, where we are right now, which isn't to say where we're going to be in a year or 5 years' time, it helps speed up processes. It helps give you things quicker. So what McNeil's just been talking about is how you can get your data storage across your teams to be corralled and spread within the team quicker, so you've got easier, quicker answers back to clients or to get documents out. And the same thing would apply in a creative process. You can now do things, whether it's mid-journey, whether it's a plethora of new video options, how you actually then create content that can come out. Now, when I've seen most of this in the last year or two, what happens is you will create something that's in a base in AI, and then whoever the creative team is have to then take it into a couple of other stages, whether it's a Photoshop stage, whether it's a Premiere editing stage, whatever it is, in order to get it to the point where you can actually give it to a client. I've yet to see something to come out of any AI seed which you can directly say, oh, that's brilliant, I'm going to show it to the client right now, before it goes into something that gets edited, that gets changed, that gets put into a deck, that gets sent to the client. Perhaps at a very, very early conceptual stage, if you're at like a pencil scamp stage, you could put some prompts into something that will come out and give you a wild scamp on something that you can show in front of a client. But to be completely honest, most of the really good pencil artists that I've known in the past 30 years, who are, 30 years ago were doing pencil sketches of creative concepts, they're probably just as quick as trying to tap in a series of prompts into something to give you something from a sketch point of view that you can show to a client. It's where you get into the sort of nuts and bolts of how that creativity can get pulled together, but you also have to be completely sure that your client is on board with coming out with something which looks futuristic, doesn't look as if it's going to be a standard piece of work, but it's also that your flow towards getting to it, you have to understand all of those steps. And it's never going to be something you can put into Midjourney and then just pull straight out and, hey, presto, it's brilliant. It's always going to have to be edited in post. And that action of creating the right prompt as well, there's many really, really good prompt artists now, and their prompt engineering is as much a skill in how they put the right words into the right AI program to get the feedback out. There was a whole article I read yesterday about how you can create light in Midjourney in particular to get the right lighting look on your piece of art that comes out. And that is there's a skill set to doing that as to how that goes in, which is as great as if you're an actual lighting artist in a visual effects studio and you know how to put virtual lights in to create something on a scene. All you're doing by that is telling Midjourney how to put it and where to put all these units which are going to create the scene. In order to know that, you have to know where to put the lights in the scene, and you have to know how you want it graded, and you have to know how you want it to look, and then you have to know how to engineer the prompt to tell Midjourney that that's what you want it to come out. So those things are all skills which you have to learn and you have to develop in the same way as you used to have to do with standard VFX programs. It can be quicker, and when you know how to do it well, you can create content quicker. But it's not what you would get like if you had what's called an AGI, which is like will just come up with stuff by itself. Basically, you have to prompt it, and you have to give it the tools it needs, because any AI is only as good as the data that's in it, whether it's the root images it's going for across the web or from a particular piece of software, or how it's actually then creating pieces of artwork that it knows you like.
Yeah.
It knows your base format is.
I really love hearing that, because we've been saying for probably 18 months, you've got to know how to prompt. You've got to know how to prompt. The prompts have got to be good. They've got to be good. But this is detail.
Yeah.
I think this is the kind of detail that people need to start sharing with each other more. Those repositories we're talking about, if you have repositories in your organization, are you sharing your prompts somewhere? Are you saving them and storing them and saying, this is the prompt I used, this was the output, and therefore you might want to use that. Someone could then tweak it and say, I improved your prompt, I've done this was the output, and put that somewhere, because otherwise we're all just prompting individually, hoping for the best results, and then ended up with okay-ish results, and then it never really improves. So
absolutely, and once you actually get into something that's commercially based as well, you get into licensing very, very quickly as to who actually owns the artwork. Yeah. Is it the AI? Is it the prompt engineer who put the stuff in? Is it the company who's paying the prompt engineer? And who owns the AI seed? Because that's the thing that's actually created the artwork. So by the time you get into like large brand working, it's very complicated as to who's actually going to own the artwork, who's actually going to own the piece of imagery, which a brand has said, that's now mine. Is it?
Yeah.
Because they haven't bought the AI, because paying for a piece of brand artwork is expensive enough, but it's not the same thing as buying the AI generative seed, which has made that piece of artwork.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to say I'm getting some questions come in, which is great. If you haven't started using the app and asking questions, you've got wearable technology right now. It's just a badge. It's not really. If you turn it around, you can download the app because the QR code is on there, so you can get the app and ask me some questions. Good ones coming in. I'm going to challenge you in a second because one is directly for you. I'm definitely not answering it. So I'm going to move us on to this, bad briefs. Now, I remember back when we were going virtual and people were asking you specifically to build like 3D virtual worlds so that we could move our exhibitions online because we were never coming back, apparently. And you were like, I'm not building that. So when it comes to...
Unfortunately, the job of product management is to say no 9 times more than you say yes. We don't have unlimited resources. So yeah, you gotta pick where you're going to make investments.
That's the point. In a second, I'm coming to you about bad briefs, but the expectations of what you're developing at the moment, are you developing to solve these problems in line with what people have actually asked you for? Or are there things where you're just pushing the boundaries so that you can take those expectations out into the field that we showed like this morning?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, there's some frameworks that we use in terms of doing user research and user discovery that actually are quite technology and solution agnostic. So, a common framework in the product management, user research world is called Jobs to be Done. I kind of referenced that earlier. And so it seeks to understand what is the day in the life of you guys? And what are those jobs that you perform and outcomes you have that have nothing to do with whether technology is a part of those jobs or not? And so that helps us just better understand, hey, what are the problems that you're looking to solve on a day-to-day basis? What's Cvent's role in those right now? What could it be in the future? With AI, there's been some where it's like, hey, those are interesting problems, interesting opportunities, but they're not exactly achievable. They're not exactly something we could solve. We talked to you earlier this morning about, hey, how could I create a personalized daily summary about what each person did at the event today instead of that generic email of, here's the day one recap. Well, that wasn't feasible for even technology to do before the world of AI to make something relevant. And it's obviously not feasible for you to handcraft a personalized summary, even of the whole event for each attendee. Now, with AI, that's something we can actually do. We're delivering a unique, bespoke experience to each individual attendee. So sometimes it changes your framework. Like we might have said, hey, that's not a problem that we're going to prioritize because we don't really think it's solvable. And now that's changed the calculus. So a lot of things we look at it around the themes of planner efficiency. We look at the themes of personalization. And especially on the marketplace side, we're trying to help you facilitate your collaboration with our venue partners and vendors in that space. And so, when you're negotiating 6-figure, 7-figure contracts with venues, that's a pretty high friction process on both sides. For you to get a quote from a venue and for them to respond, for you to work on and collaborate on a floor plan and a diagram in the room or collaborate on a room block. These are pretty high friction processes that AI can help both sides of that equation better work together. So those are the 3 big opportunities we've said, hey, AI could be really well suited for this. And then, we look over the horizon on that planner efficiency side. You hear a lot about agentive technology and building out all these different agents. That maps really well to jobs to be done. So we look at all the different jobs to be done and say, hey, where could we build potentially an AI assistant that'll help you get that job done faster, more efficiently, in a more impactful way?
Yeah, love it. And so you might be wondering, why have I got a pair of bad briefs on here? Because John spoke to me about something a while back, and I was like, yeah, that actually makes sense. So I obviously used AI to come up with some bad briefs, and I'm not clicking forward. There we go. So when John and I were talking, and he was like, sometimes I get told, this is the kind of thing he gets told, we want something cool. So we're going to do an event, and we want something cool, something with AI that makes the event more fun for everyone. Maybe something interactive, just so people have a good time and can see some AI stuff happening across the event. Can you come up with some ideas? And he said this is realistic. This is the kind of brief that he would often get. What do you do with this?
Well, I normally push back, because I'm in the same boat as McNeil. I'm in the delivery business, so I'm going, first question is, well, how much money have you got? And that's normally the first question, because just making some AI stuff happening with ideas normally has dollar signs attached to it. It's definitely going back to that first comment about what do you want it to do, because there's no point in anybody in the creative or the technical business coming up with something which is going to cost, 100, 200. My normal default for those things is that if you want an interactive experience, which is going to be in a space, anyway, it's £100,000. So £100,000, that's your baseline. Because if it's going to be new, if it's going to be new tech, if it's going to need R&D, whatever size it is to a certain extent, unless it's like a screen in a corner, you're going to have to build it before you take it to your event. Because there are no events that you are going to have enough time to pre-build something to test it when you're on site. Unless you're doing COP, basically, but that has so many millions attached to it that it kind of doesn't really matter. You're going to have to build it off-site. You're going to have to get a tech team and a creative team working hand in hand to deliver it, and that takes people time and it takes technology time. So you can go off-the-shelf products. You can go, you can go to OpenAI, Midjourney, all those the usual feeds, and then you say we'll let people put a prompt in, and something will come up in the screen. And especially if it's public-facing, you really, really don't want to do that because whatever brand you're working for is doing a pop-up with free access to the internet and AI, generative AI. They're going to come up with some weird stuff. And the people who are running the pop-up for your brand are probably not really very happy about it when it appears on someone's Instagram feed that they were at that booth and they saw this.
I tell you what, sorry to interrupt you, but there's been times where I've prompted my AI and it says, sorry, we can't generate sexual content. And you're like, what?
What did I ask for?
I work for Steven. It's nothing, trust me, it's very normal business stuff. Yeah. So I do think you're right. Sometimes it kind of just runaways with itself.
It does. I mean, I'll give you
the
example of this is pre-AI, but when Walkers did their Gary Lineker crisp packet thing, and anybody who wanted to could put anything on a crisp packet that would then appear on the internet with the Gary Lineker holding the bag up. And it took them 15 minutes before Walkers had to go, no, take it away. We can't have this stuff out online with our brand on it, because literally it was 15 minutes before people were just putting weird stuff on a crisp bag with Gary Lineker holding it up. And people are strange, basically. And that goes to not only on the creative side, it goes to what McNeil was talking about, the logistics, the operational side. Just come off an event, which is a small-scale event for some high-level guests who were turning up at a luxury hotel, and we were doing a lot of interactive, some experiential work. And the days had been planned out, and because they were all C-suite, their EAs had answered all the questions to begin with. So we had a planned activity session on one of the days, and what happens, the C-suite turned up at the venue and went, no, I don't want to do that, I want to do that. So, of course, everything goes out the window. All the activity timings go out the window. The fact they have personalized agendas on the app goes out the window, because then you have to change personalized agendas. But only do you have to do that, you have to get the venue hotel information on board to match up with the app, to match up with what the C-suite people then said they wanted to do, all of which takes a lot of time and people and contacts and deliverability. And unless you have in your planning process, as you were saying, all the venue stuff lined up, so the venue can input into your system, whether it's AI or a standard app-based system, and you have the correct input coming in from your guests and your clients, and you have production all milling about in the same system, and it works, and you've tested it before you go to site, it goes wrong, and then you have basically the poor production staff sitting up till 2 a.m, manually putting stuff in order to put it onto the app, so it would then appear the next morning when the C-suite guys woke up.
Yeah.
And that's the human thing of you can't get over allowing for humanity, whether it's, Joe Public in a pop-up in Leicester Square putting in dodgy prompts to take something out, or it's the C-suite guy turning up at a luxury hotel going, I know my EA told you I wanted to do that 2 weeks ago, but I've changed my mind. I want to do this, which is a different time and a different place, and you have to make it happen.
Yeah.
And it's that human interaction which AI should be able to help with, and I'm sure it will be able to help with. It's just not quite there yet, but a lot of people kind of expect we'll just use AI and it'll be fine.
And it will just fix it.
Yeah.
I guess think about the human interaction, just to kind of think about some tactical things that you guys like, just dealing with your internal stakeholders. Like the core value of your core job is nailing the venue, nailing the attendee experience, crafting that great impactful event, and that probably means answering a lot of questions about that event that you're building to a million different stakeholders in a million different ways. You've got your PR person asking for, hey, the CEO wants to mention this about the event. Can you give me this data? Can you answer this question? You've got your sales team asking, your marketing team asking, your your AV team asking. So, I'll give you some examples of some things we've done. Just as a product manager, one of the things I'm doing is building and launching products. Doesn't really help if none of our customers, like you guys, ever find out about them. And so a lot of my product manager's team time is sitting in Zoom meetings, doing trainings for the sales team, the client service team, the marketing team. Then they go and train their teams, and they do another Zoom meeting, and it's all this word of mouth. It's kind of like a digital fireplace and gathering and storytelling, and this is what this new product is all about. It's not a good use of the product manager's time. Like, we want them focusing on crafting great solutions, spending time with users, crafting the best possible, solving the problems in the best possible way. So what we really had to move to was a lot more discipline around a culture of writing. Because I'm going to get their time back, it's got to be spent less on answering questions, communicating out, and more on the core function, but they have to document what they're doing. So really getting back to diligently writing one-pagers and six-pagers and FAQs, working with our product marketing team to have well-defined persona documentation. This is the world of product management, but you obviously can see parallels for events. And then what do we do? Well, we built an AI bot that anybody could ask questions. So we have that upcoming Cvent Essentials launch. Our sales team, our marketing team, our PR team can just go and say, hey, what's the goal of Essentials? Or when are we going to launch? And when does this feature come out? All those different things are documented. They're put into a central knowledge base. Now anyone can ask questions, and they're not constantly interrupting the product manager's day. Instead, they've given the product management team superpowers. And so there's two simple tools you could look at to facilitate something like this. The super easy free one is NotebookLM by Google. It's super simple. You drag some documents in. You can even generate a podcast. So, hey, we've got this upcoming Essentials launch. I'm going to have AI generate a 12-minute podcast. So if the executives don't have time to read the six-pager, can you at least listen to our podcast? And it sounds great. It's really engaging. It's a new medium. This male and this female, AI generated, talks about it. It's super interesting, and it's more likely people are going to receive that content. And if they have a follow-up question, they just ask it in the prompt, they get an answer. Yeah. There's other tools at the enterprise scale that are focusing on how do you build these knowledge bases across all the different functions in the enterprise, how do you build these shared prompts. So tools like Glean are kind of high on the list for a lot of organizations to kind of like you have wiki software like Atlassian Confluence or Notion or Monday.com, those kind of groups. But they're doing this for AI. So how do I democratize the use of AI across an enterprise? So we at Cvent are looking at tools like Glean to roll out to all of our employees as opposed to just more generic tools like ChatGPT.
Absolutely. I'm going to rapid fire through our last slides because there are some really good questions and I really want to get to them, but I want to give the audience a checklist. So we had another poor briefs, need a robot, need an AI, maybe trivia, all that kind of stuff should be entertaining. Bad briefs. So bad briefs result in poor execution. Now, if you remember this, it was that wonderful Willy Wonka experience. And do you know what I loved about this? Where it says the police were actually called. It was so bad. The children were so angry and the parents were so in uproar, they had to call the police. Don't let this be your event. Let's just not take AI too far, right? So I think, what we're saying here is, if you come out with a good brief, you should have a goal, like you've been saying. Our goal is to incorporate an interactive AI feature. For what purpose? To enhance the attendee engagement. For what purpose? To create a memorable experience during the event. We're looking for an AI-driven activity that attendees can actively participate in, such as a game or an interactive display, which will appeal to a diverse audience and showcase unique uses of AI. The feature should be a bit intuitive, easy to use, ideally integrate with our event app. So you've given another directive there. I wanted to integrate. We're especially interested in ideas that promote social interaction or encourage our attendees to explore the venue. So again, it's giving that brief very, very directive, 2 or 3 things that I need to do. I need to understand how much that will cost to set up and the requirements involved. So just set really realistic expectations. If you're working with a partner or if you want to do something, you have to know the why. What is it you're trying to get out of it before you go off and start doing that?
What about one more line?
He wants another line.
Makes your supplier happy. What is the ballpark budget?
What is the ballpark budget? I'm never going to answer that. I get asked that so often. They're like, well, what ballpark are you working with? I'm like, well, how much does it cost? Well, what ballpark are you working with? Well, how much have you done it for in the past? But what I don't know. If you're anything like me, I struggle to share it. I'm really sorry. Okay, so set clear objectives, define your target audience, specific requirements for interactivity.
Yeah.
What is it you're trying to make interactive? Is it the engagement between each other? Is it with the venue? Is it with the vendors, the exhibitors? Is it with the particular product sets? Like, what is it you're trying to do here? And then after you've done that, we want some guidance on the usability and accessibility of this thing. So easy to use, or we don't mind because we've got complex user set who have just been trained on something, so we want them to learn something next stage. And then suggestions for the desired outcomes, what will happen once that person has used it, and then request for cost. But yes, maybe give your budget as well. So that's the checklist. I want to get to our Q&A because we've got some really good questions. There was a question that was upvoted quite a lot, and now it's gone away for some reason. In fact, I want to ask the question because it's gone away. It said, do you think that AI will replace event planners? Who on earth answer that on my behalf? Do you think AI will replace the role of event planners in any kind of way, shape, or form?
No, definitely. I mean, I think the examples you were giving about who's good at writing prompts and for visual design, for creating creative assets like movies and videos. It takes expertise to do it. Just like, because a bot's answering all these questions, the job of the product manager goes away. And so, if that core competency is still high, this just allows it to scale, right? And so you're able to focus your time on not answering a million questions, attendee queries, stakeholder queries, and instead focus on the core experience. And I think, that we're going to see that expertise in every function where it really is more of an assistant than it is. So it's almost, that's how people think about it. Is how do I hire an assistant? If I was to be able to hire one, that's how you should think about an AI, right? And you can have multiple assistants, but ultimately you've got to be highly competent at that core job. And that's the only way it's going to ultimately work.
And people will always want human interaction. I think that's going to be a given across any field, that technology comes along, it changes how you do things, but people still want human interaction. That's always going to be there.
Yeah, and that's where we see, again, AI not replacing the event experience, but it accelerating it. I think the other piece we see is, especially in the world of marketing, people are like, oh, great, AI can be used to create all this content at scale. It's like, well, yeah, everyone's seen that. So everyone's creating a lot of content. Yeah. And so it's creating a lot of noise. It's crowding out your content, your messaging, when everyone's creating it. Yeah. So people are craving authentic content, content that can be verified from real people and real humans. And, there's all sorts of studies that are coming out now of I think Freeman just had one that came out. I think we might have shared it on our social media channel. Just trusted channels. Every channel is decreasing except for events. And that's kind of becoming the place where if you want to build brand trust, if you want to build authority in a certain subject matter space, like events are a channel that people are going to turn more and more to because digital is getting tougher and tougher to break through.
It really is. You know what I love about that? We often talk about the role of events and hospitality professionals improving their value and their worth, and actually that is the way that you can go to your senior board members and whatnot and say, we need more money, we need to invest more in this events channel because it is the only authentic channel that we actually have left for you to get across your messaging and for us to meet people, in real life, IRL. So next question, what 3 AI tools, if you have any, do you think event organizers should know about and use in their day-to-day?
Day-to-day, gosh. From a creative point of view, I'd definitely say Midjourney. Get your head around Midjourney and start using it. It's a simple tool to begin with, like OpenAI was, before they started stopping access a little bit of that and you had to pay for it. But Midjourney's great. There's 2 or 3 video options which are great, but you really have to control how you put stuff into there. And from a words point of view, ChatGPT is great for content as long as you know how to. And I'm sure everybody in this room uses it already. A friend of mine launched a little app which I still have to go into and look at, which provides, when you put in the email that came from a client, it provides you a commercial breakdown of whether you should pursue that pitch or not, pursue that brief, as to the commercial viability of it. Currently, I'm not sure it's going to supersede the commercial director going, we want to do this or we don't want to do this. But that's the sort of tool where you will be able to put in something to give you a quick answer and say, these are the lookouts that you need to look at. These are the warnings that are flags. This is a gold star, go for that. I mean, again, it's something that speeds up your process, and it's something that will provide data when you look back on it over a couple of years of what things went for from a pitch point of view, what you went for, what you didn't go for, because when you look back over 2 or 3 years of legacy data of what pitches people went for, how did it go? It's very difficult to pull that data out. It's very difficult to glean anything important from it. If you can get something that will give you insights into that in a quick basis, I think that's very worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. What was your number one, would you say, that people should be using day to day?
I mean, again, I think like the holy grail is how can I be in more than one place at the same time? And, the tools I mentioned earlier, the super simple one, Notebook LM. Toss in all your documentation about an event, invite your stakeholders in, and they can ask any questions you want. I mean, you literally can be in multiple places at one time. So scaling your knowledge and expertise about your event, centralizing that knowledge, making sure it's well documented, and scaling it. Of course, I have my personal favorite tool for presentation design, which I love. Beautiful.ai.
I love Beautiful AI.
It is really
It's very good. I've started using it now because of you.
It's so good.
McNeil, so he broke our system, I'm going to say, because we had, we've got our creative designer who was like, this is the presentation you're going to use, this is the deck, everybody be branded. And on the side, these beautiful presentations were being created by product. And I was like, how are they doing this? And he was like, I'm kind of using Beautiful AI.
It's so fast.
It's so good.
So fast.
If you've not used it, you should use Beautiful AI. It's very, very good. And now the whole company uses it. So.
Yeah, we got about 150 people using it. It started with just me. But yeah, you save so much time. You get to share all your content so anybody can pull slides from any deck when they want. So in 5 minutes, you're ready for a customer meeting, an internal meeting. We actually switched our entire internal meetings group to Beautiful AI because what we saw from our creative team was just this insane bottleneck around our big company-wide events. So our company-wide, our SKO, even incentives to some extent, this event, Connect US, where all of a sudden 100 PowerPoints go fly through for creative review and they're out of time. So this big spiky traffic, we're like, what? Like for everything but Reggie's keynote, we can just put it in Beautiful AI.
Yeah.
In fact, if you go to any of our roadmap talks in the Innovation Pavilion, you'll see they might look a little different than PowerPoint. That's because we just moved it all to Beautiful AI.
Love it. I also love the fact that even though I'm a podcast host for Cvent, you sent me an entire podcast that was generated by AI, thus putting me out of a job. Okay, so I'm going to ask one final question. We've only got a couple of minutes left. I'm going to ask this one. What do you think AI can achieve in the event industry in the next 5 years? So let's go futuristic. Start with you, John, if you don't mind.
I think we'll definitely get to a point where specifically your interactive content, your public-facing and client-facing interactive content will move to another level. The ability to have something which is truly immersive in a space is going to change exponentially as it becomes quicker and easier to generate content, which will be able to wrap around a room, will be able to create stuff that reacts to people walking through it. The bottlenecks for that in the previous 10, 15 years have been how many people can you walk through so that a camera can register a skeletal key which will go into some live particle trace that will put something on the screen. That's exactly the kind of thing that AI will build to do in a flash, so that you can actually have more than you don't have to restrict people walking through. You don't have to have 10 people walking through at any time. You can have an interactive space where 200 people are walking through, and you have the computational ability to track all 200 people all at the same time. Currently, that's not there, but it is going to be there, and then that's going to change how people move through interactive spaces and how those spaces are built. So you'd have something like Frameless down in Marble Arch, but you'd have that as a fully interactive space where people can interact with the content whilst the content is thinking itself through that I've got 200 people in there, some of them are doing this and some of them are doing that, and we want this to happen. And that, I think, bears more to the future than the virtual wearing a headset future in 5 years' time, because once you get AI and graphic ability to create a room that's big enough to have 200 people in, those people will want to be in the room with each other doing that, not necessarily sitting in their sitting rooms with a headset on, separated out from the rest of humanity, basically. I do think that's where that's going to happen. it's getting there. In 5 years' time, I'd say the rate of change is definitely going to be something we can look at.
Exponential.
Yeah.
30 seconds or less? 5
Yeah, I mean, I think the interfaces we know today are going to change a lot. That the core problems and experiences are still going to be there. I think, Sam Altman from OpenAI said, the change you're going to see from AI will greatly underwhelm in the short term, and it will completely overwhelm in the long term. So, self-driving cars are 1 year away, said in 2013. So it's going to move slower than you think in the short term, but it's going to change things in bigger ways you can never imagine in the long term. And so, in the event space, I think something like personalization, you talk about tracking 200 unique people in a single space. People are going to expect entirely personalized experiences. Anything you put in front of an attendee from the second they visit that website to the posted and feedback survey, nothing's generic. I mean, take a super simple example. Reading a session description. Well, you guys spend time with your stakeholders and your speaker, and you write one session description. In 3 years, there will not be one session description. When I'm looking at your session catalog, I'm going to see a session description for every single session that's talking to me about why I might be interested in that session. So you will have 1,000 registrants, you'll have 1,000 session descriptions for one session. And so it's all going to be why it matters to me. And so that's just one example of like the ways that we need to like kind of think about concepts like personalization and engagement and like really challenge how far it could go.
So long as that AI has access to their personal input of what they want.
Oh, it absolutely.
That's where that circle has to close.
There's a great saying one of our user researchers put it in a PowerPoint. Any personalization effort starts with the data. So if you haven't really defined, who are your speakers and where are your sessions and who is this attendee, and you have all that data in one place, you're never going to be able to deliver on an experience that's bespoke to each individual. And so building that data in one place, that's the kind of the core competencies and skills that you need to build in your teams. And then when you think about, of course, a little selfishly, about your technology providers, that kind of stuff is what enables you to be able to actually deliver on these types of experiences.
Well, I'm going to stop you there and say thank you so much. We are a tiny bit over time, but that absolutely is accurate. The integration that we can do between our technologies, we're already doing it, I've got to tell you. Or I know who you all are, and for everything you do around this event today, believe me, I'll capture it, and I'll talk to you as such. So
you're all being watched.
Be scared, be very scared. No, it's a very good thing. It means you get more personalization. But thank you so much. I hope you've taken something good away from today's session. We've got lots of good questions, so me and my content team will be able to pull those down and answer those on our blogs and our podcasts and webinars and whatnot. So thank you so much for being interactive, even if we didn't get to your question. Lunch, I smell. It smells good, and I think it might be time for it. What do you think? Yeah, so please do go to the Innovation Pavilion for lunch or the Tyburn Kitchen on the bottom floor, and you can have lunch. Please don't forget to take the surveys. It's a good thing to do. Thank you very much.